Introduction and summary to Surah 91, Al-Shams. This is one of the early Meccan revelations, beginning with a fine nature passage and leading up to man's need of realizing his spiritual responsibility. It ends with a warning of terrible consequences for those who fear not the hereafter. So that's 15 verses of the sun, and then we arrive at the introduction and summary to Surah 92, Al-Layl. You know, the Abdullah Yusuf Ali commentary that came with his meaning for the Holy Quran. So, or whatever other extra title other than the Holy Quran or the Quran that it comes with. But introduction and summary to Surah 92, Al-Layl. This was one of the first Suwar to be revealed within the first 10 and may be placed in date close to Surah 89 and 93. Suratain, I guess. Note that in all these three Suwar, the mystery and the contrasts as between night and day are appealed to for the consolation of humanity in its spiritual yearning. Here we are told to strive our utmost toward God, and He will give us every help and satisfaction. After the 21 verses of the night, we arrive at the introduction and summary to Surah 93, Al-Duha. This surah is close in date to Suratain 89 and 92, and the imagery drawn from the contrast of night and day is common to all three. In this surah, the vicissitudes of human life are referred to, and a message of hope and consolation is given to man's soul from Allah's past mercies, and he is bidden to pursue the path of goodness and proclaim the bounties of God. This is the general meaning. In particular, the surah seems to have been revealed in a dark period in the outer life of the Holy Prophet, when a man of less resolute will might have been discouraged, but the Prophet is told to hold the present of less account than the glorious hereafter, which awaited him like the glorious morning after a night of stillness and gloom. The hereafter was not only in the future life, but his later life on this earth, full of victory and satisfaction. After the 11 verses of the glorious morning light, we have the introduction and the summary to Surah 94, Al-Sharh, or Al-Inshirah. This short surah gives a message of hope and encouragement in a time of darkness and difficulty. It was revealed to the Holy Prophet soon after the last surah of Duha, whose argument it supplements. So after the 8 verses of the expansion of the breast, we arrive at the introduction and summary to Surah 95, Al-Tin. This is also a very early surah. It appeals to the most sacred symbols to show that Allah created man in the best of molds, but that man is capable of the utmost degradation unless he has faith and leads a good life. In subject matter, the surah closely resembles 103, and after the 8 verses of the fig, we arrive at the introduction and summary of Al-Alaq, or Iqra. So with the clinging clot, or reed, reed with an A. Verses 1 through 5 of this surah were the first direct revelation to the Holy Prophet. The circumstances, material and psychical, in which they came are described in the running comment 28 through 30, which should be referred to, that I posted that last year. After that, there was an interval or break, fatra, extending over some months or perhaps over a year. Surah 68 is usually considered to have been the next revelation in point of time, but the remainder of the surah, ayat 6 through 19, came soon after the fatra, and That portion is joined on to the first 5 verses containing the command to preach, because it explains the chief obstacle to the delivery of the message to man. See man's own obstinacy, vanity, and insolence. I said I'm reminded of the gender neutral forms, right? So we arrive at, after those 19 verses, we arrive at the introduction and summary to Surah 97, Al-Qadr, the night of power or honor. The chronology of this surah doesn't have a known significance. It is probably Meccan, though some hold that it was revealed in Medina. The subject matter is the mystic night of power or honor, in which revelation comes down to a benighted world. It may be to the wonderful cosmos of an individual and transforms the conflict of wrongdoing into peace and harmony through the agency of the angelic host, representing the spiritual powers of the mercy of Allah. Now, yes, we're talking about the last night's Ramadan, but it's more than that we're talking about here. There's concepts involved. It's one of the last 10. So some years, 20 through 29, you should look for it, or do extra observances. And some years, 21 through 30. 21 through 29 are always of the last nights of Ramadan, but that doesn't mean there are only 9 some years. Anyways, that's more. Introduction, after those 5 verses, we arrive at the introduction and summary to Surah 98, Al-Bayna. This surah was probably an early Medina surah, or possibly a late Meccan surah. In subject matter, it carries forward the argument of the last surah. The mystic night of revelation is indeed blessed, but those who reject truth are impervious to God's message, however clear may be the evidence in support of it. And after the 8 verses of the clear evidence, it's sort of a warning against conservatism and liberalism, because, are you going to return when you see the proof? Are you going to say, oh, maybe, there's something more than just the interpretation of other people? Here's something that I can directly understand, The introduction and summary to Surah 99, Al-Zalzala, the earthquake. The surah is close in date to the last, and is generally referred to the early Medina period, though it may possibly be of the late Meccan period. It refers to the tremendous convulsion and uprooting which will take place when the present order of the world is dissolved and the new spiritual world of justice and truth takes its place. The symbol used is that of an earthquake, which will shake our present material and phenomenal world to its very foundation. The mystic words in which the earthquake is described are remarkable for both power and graphic aptness. With that shaking, all hidden mysteries will be brought to light. And so we have the introduction and summary to Surah 100 after those 8 verses. Al-Adiyat. So there's 11 verses of this, and then we'll have one final program in this introduction series. This is one of the earlier Meccan Suwar, in the depths of its mystery and its rhythm and sublimity of its language and symbolism. It may be compared with Surah 79. Its subject matter is the irresistible nature of spiritual power and knowledge, contrasted with unregenerate man's ingratitude, pettiness, helplessness, and ignorance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.